So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're listening to this. This is Macho BD alongside my critic about in crime, Ricardo Medina,
Hello.
and the movie junkie herself, Sommerleigh.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, and this is the inaugural episode of 6 Reels Deep. So this is my first attempt at doing a horror film team series, So yeah, for now up until Halloween, God willing, I'll be talking about horror films, right? But specifically those with a nostalgic twist, right? So that's basically films that we've seen before, but we just sort of revisiting just to celebrate the anniversary, or upcoming shows that have a nostalgic feel, or just stuff that we saw in the past that have a nostalgic feel, but they may not be tied to any particular anniversary or anything like that, right? So yeah, it's just, to celebrate the genre that is horror, right? So of course, for this episode, I had to bring in Summer because, she writes a lot about horror on the Robot Mango Reviews blog, so I had to bring her in on that.
Yes, my first love.
Yes. And I know, Ricardo, like you, in your case, you respect the genre of horror, but it's not a genre, sorry, that I know that you absolutely love. So, like when it comes to me bringing you on now, I had to pick, a couple shows that I know will more, I know you can more or less enjoy, for what they are, right? Right. So the first show that we're going to talk about, what we're going to kick things off with, and what we're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of, in this case, is a little film called Shaun of the Dead. Yes. So basically, I'm just gonna do like a quick preamble as in how I got into the show in the first place, and Summer and Ricardo do the same, and you just talk about stuff that we like and stuff that kind of don't work, and we'll just give like a final thought and rating, right? So kicking things off, right? So of course, Shaun of the Dead is clearly an homage to the George A. Romero masterpiece that is Dawn of the Dead, right? And even Edgar Wright himself, the writer and director of this, he pays tribute to that movie in the end credits. Like, while that's like the last song that plays during the final part of the end credits, right? You hear this goofy kind of polka song playing that. That's actually from Dawn of the Dead. That's a song that plays in the mall itself. It actually plays at the very end of the movie, which I thought like that moment in the end of the movie was fantastic. The way how they use it there, and then also with that grandfather clock that just sends chills on my spine, right? Anyway, what's so interesting about this movie here, right, is that it dropped on the same year, like about a few months after. A little director by the name of Zack Snyder dropped his debut feature, which was Dawn of the Dead, which was the official remake to that 1978 film, right? But in the case of that remake, I still stand by it. I think that it is a brilliant remake of that film. I mean, you could say what you want about Zack's work now, but
from Snyder.
It's your favorite film from him? Okay. Me, it's a toss-up between 300 and Watchmen. Like, I find like when he does comic book movies, I think that he just knocks it out of the park, right? But yeah, I'm not surprised that his Dawn of the Dead remake is a favorite of, well, your top favorite Zack Snyder film, right? And then also too, this movie came out 2 years after a little film from a guy called Danny Boyle called 20 Days Later. And I could be wrong about this, but I feel to me this was where, like in the 2000s, this was where England was put on the map as far as horror films go, right? Because for me, like with 20 Days Later, right, which is a show that I enjoy. I don't love it as much, but as far as like a zombie film, I really absolutely enjoyed, right? This to me, what I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was one of the first films to feature running zombies. I think, when I saw that, I remember I was like, oh shit, what? Okay.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Zombie stuff here.
Yeah, but what really means
Although as they say, they're not zombies because they're not dead.
Right,
so there's that whole thing. Yeah,
the infected, right? I forgot. But for me, why that show stood out so much, right? Get into Shaun of the Dead in a bit, but why that show stood out to me is the sort of slice of life, sort of day by day take on this whole dystopian apocalyptic world, right? And you'll see that sort of style replicated in stuff like The Walking Dead, right? And I still think that the sequel, 28 weeks later, is the better film though, just because of how incredibly tense it was though. It's actually one of the few sequels that I only saw once and never got around to watching again because, boy, that show is just way too intense for me, but I absolutely love it, right? But yeah, you know what I mean? So for me, I felt like in that time, like in the early 2000s, thanks to movies like 20 Days Later, yeah, people started to look to England when it comes to horror films, right? So you could kind of see that as the perfect timing for Edgar right now to drop his film, right, which would be Shaun of the Dead, right? And for me, like going into this film for the first time, like I think when we all heard about this show for the first time, we all thought that it was just going to be a spoof of like zombies, like a zombie movie, right? Like we just supposed to, it's something like a Leslie Nielsen film, like Spy Hard or something like that. We thought
like scary
like
movie or something like that.
Yes, like scary movie, right? Or also, by the way, which came out in the early 2000s, right? But then when you hear it's a rom-com or a comedy, you're like, what? What is this, right? But although this is like a minor gripe, but I let it slide because of how much I enjoyed the show. It's less romantic than it claims it is, right? Like it's the romance stuff is there, but it's just more about like heartbreak and our hero dealing with this broken relationship. But it's not like a romantic comedy per se, right? But it just sounds cool when you just see it's rom-com, right? But one thing I just really enjoy about this movie here, right, is that even though it is more funny than it needs to be, right, I like that it does not hold back on the zombie elements, right? Like, just because it's a comedy doesn't mean that people don't die in it, right? And zombies don't, like, rip through flesh and there's not blood and guts. Like, all those stuff is there, right? But there's still that comedic element that just holds things together, right? And I like that also, too. You could laugh at how over-the-top the violence and gore is, but there's other times where you have to where you feel the seriousness of it all, especially when characters that you kind of grow to love, die, right? Because of this whole situation. So this is the first of Edgar's what we call the Three Cornetto. That's all. It's Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy.
Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah. Which by the way, I actually own on Blu-ray, and I'm so happy to see that, because this is like the first time. This is like the trilogy where it was Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, right? And this was my introduction to Simon and Nick and Edgar. I never heard of those guys before, right? I never saw Spaced, so I didn't even know who Simon Pegg was, right? But after the show, I was like, oh, is that guy, right? And and I was like just amazed to see how his career blew up after that, right? In particular, how he appeared in the J.J. Abrams, Star Trek trilogy, right? That was really cool, right?
Right.
But for me, when it just...
I think for me, I think he guessed in The Office a couple times. That's just where I think I know him from.
Okay,
the British Office.
Oh, the British Office.
Or either that or Mitchell on the Web. I can't remember.
Okay,
it's one of those.
But fun fact, right? One of the actors in the show, Lucy Davis. Y'all remember her recently from the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Yeah, she was in the British Office. Like, I didn't know that till like I watched the British. Well, only watched a season of it, unfortunately. But yeah, I saw it there. I was like, oh, okay, right. But yeah, as far as the Three Cornetto trilogy goes, Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy goes, Shaun is the best in my opinion. Second best is Hot Fuzz. And for me, I really enjoy it because that was like a great tribute to the body cop action genre, right? And third will be The World's End, right? Which is a show that I like but I didn't love. But I feel like if I just watch it one more time, I'll really appreciate it, right? But I do like how it pays tribute to alien invasion films. That was really what it was going for, right? So lastly, before we get to your thoughts, right? I did not see Shaun of the Dead in theaters because it wasn't in theaters, right? From what I remember, I found out about it through a trailer. Well, the first trailer that Universal Pictures dropped on YouTube. I saw it like, oh, okay, Shaun of the Dead, that looks cool, right? But yeah, it didn't show in cinema. So back then in 2004. Yeah, people used to, screener copies used to come out to the Blu-ray. And yeah, we had to talk about pre-COVID times. Yeah, people used to put these things on DVDs and sell them, right? For like $10 or $20, I think it was, right? Yeah. So yeah, I bought a copy of Shaun of the Dead and I watched it and I enjoyed it and I shared it with friends and they enjoyed it too, right? But to be fair, I have long gotten rid of that and now I own it on Blu-ray, right? Hot Fuzz, however, I saw that in cinema because it was there, had a blast with it. World's End, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't see there in cinema because I don't think it was there neither, which I find was kind of weird, right? I really don't remember if it was there or not, right? But yeah, long story short, Shaun for me was always the best and still remains the best of Edgar's trilogy. And yeah, I think that just as a horror comedy, it still delivers the goods, man, So Ricardo, just your quick history with Shaun of the Dead and how would you compare it to Hot Fuzz and World's End?
Right. Yeah, I slightly prefer Hot Fuzz over Shaun Dead. Mostly because I just find it was funnier a bit, and to me it was funnier, and it had better editing. Especially that opening montage with the introducing Simon Pegg's character.
Oh yeah, that
Uh,
montage is brilliant. I love that.
Yeah,
Especially the
yeah.
narration. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. For me, Shaun Dead was I saw that on cable. That's how I caught it. That's how I saw it the first time. I was like, oh, okay. And I again was marginally familiar with Simon Pegg again. I think it's either The Office or Mitchell and Webb. If Mitchell and Webb was around that time, yeah, I think so. That I know him from that. I swear he guest starred in one of those. That's how know him. But yeah, I just watched it and yeah, again, it's a classic. It's really funny. It just subverts the material really well, and it's one of those. Oh yeah, you know how to do it. You have to do know how to do it. And then well, you could probably get into a more interesting discussion about Edgar Wright's protagonists and how they operate in the world. Especially that last movie. But yeah, we can talk about it. But yeah, that is love the movie is a modern classic in terms of comedy, but mixing the material really, really well. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Any quick thoughts on World's End, or is just a show you don't care for?
Yeah, that come and gone for me, to be honest. Again, what happens is that to me his Wilson is one of those characters I don't like the ending. I kind of hate the ending when I think about it.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's not as strong as it could have been, man. Like I get, but like,
right.
nah.
Yeah, and but again, it does follow the pattern of Edgar Wright's protagonists and what that kind of mean. There's a certain pattern with his protagonists I notice. That aspect of it. Again, you can get into discussion about that. But yeah, it does it because for me, in my humble opinion, I only watch it once, don't remember it, kind of forget about it, kind of thing. It's another thing that came along a little too late with respect to Edgar Wright's style of humor. In my humble opinion, so it really worked as well. But yeah, it's I only watched it once. I really didn't care.
Okay, all right. And yeah, lastly, Summer, your history with Shaun Dead, and how would you compare it with Hot Fuzz and World's End?
For me, I honestly, I'm trying to remember if I first saw it on cable or, but it probably would have been on DVD because, like you, I used to buy like weekly. I used to buy a couple $100 in burnt DVDs. So I feel like that's probably how I saw it. And I absolutely loved it. I think, like most people, it caught me off guard. I didn't expect it to be what it was. And it's one of those movies that you over and over again, you watch it and over again, you see some homage to another horror movie or another iconic director or something like that. And I enjoyed for that. Hot Fuzz, I think for me as well, Hot Fuzz ties with Shaun of the Dead. I don't want to say I like it more, but it's very, very close for me. I do think the comedy in Hot Fuzz is stronger, and both films has rewatchability to it. But as for Will's End, I'm kind of with you guys on that one. I do think it's the weakest of the three. I remember the first time I saw it, I didn't really enjoy I found it a tad disappointing, and I think it just came from the fact that it caught me off guard with the way the Simon Pegg's character was written. I think I see what Ricardo talks about with the pattern to the protagonist in these films. And I think they were trying to maybe go a different direction. And because Peg is always the lovable guy, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me. The ending also, yeah, the ending feels a bit, I don't know, the rush might not be the correct word for it, but I feel like it might have been like one of those cases where you wasn't quite sure how to wrap it up. But what I do think is I did enjoy it more. I've seen it about 3 times, and I did enjoy it more on my second viewing. And I don't think it's as weak as I thought it was. It does have some rewatchability as well. Again, if you're a fan of science fiction movies, there are a lot of call outs here and there, not to mention the stuff that ties all three films together. But yeah, it's definitely a tie for Shaun and Hot for me, and Vincent comes in after that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my problem with the ending is that it tries to do the dark subversive route, but don't work close. So it's kind of a very similar
Hmm.
argument. It's similar idea with something like Cabin in the Woods, right?
Hmm.
That's
Right.
similar kind of conceit, but like I don't know, it just don't work here at all.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. With me with that, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
I
think
thought
it's
no, like,
because we expect that his movies tend to end, even if there's a darkness to them, it's an upbeat kind of thing.
Yeah.
right.
And Wilson didn't seem to have that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on to Shaun of the Dead, right? So, I just wrote some notes. I just sort of sharing moments that stood out to me, right? I'm not gonna, run through the entire film, right? So I love how the first 10 minutes or so sets up how mundane Shaun's world is, right? That's what Simon Pegg's character is introduced, right? His girlfriend Liz, wants more out of the relationship, and she and Shaun's roommate Pete, wondering why his best friend and slacker Ed's been rooming with Shaun for so long, right? Ed is played by Nick Frost, by the way, right? He just there playing video games. Like every time you see him, he's just on the couch playing video games, right? I love how even like the world around him feels mundane. I love how they show that in the title sequence where everybody's like moving in rhythm to this beat while they're going about their lives, right? Like the kid who's like kicking the football, and the people working in the supermarket, and how everybody moving. And you notice how they look all dazed and zoned out, right? It's just like, oh, this is our lives, right? So I just love how Ed
yeah.
gets set it up visually.
There's the zombies already kind of thing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that even Shaun and all too starts noticing, wait, kind of weird things going on now. Like, there's a moment
Yeah.
where he's in a bus, everybody around him just looking zoned out. And then he looks to his,
Right.
he looks across, well, later on there's a scene where he, in a flower shop, right? And then he notices this vagrant just grab at a pigeon.
Homeless
And just-
guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
a homeless guy, and about to bite his head off.
Well, I was just thinking like the social commentary of it now. Like in the original Dawn of the Dead, I don't know if Zack Snyder really leaned into this necessarily, but in the original Dawn of the Dead, I always thought, well, I think there's like a kind of common interpretation of it is that modern consumerism is zombies now.
Yeah.
We go to malls and we live the same life over and over repetitively, kind of thing. That's how I always read it. So
Yeah.
this opening, in the opening edit was that now, like we're already zombies. We're living as zombies right now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's how I always read it. Yeah.
Well, I think with Zach's doing that, I think like he just leaned more on the apocalyptic side of things. So like the commentary was out. It was just about just pure survival. That's what it was. It was just
Right.
hell and
Yeah.
survive. That's
Whilst
what it is.
Romero was the commentary of it.
Yes, correct.
And well, you could go back to the original
Night of the Living Dead.
Also that also had commentary. I think, well, most people, again, not my idea, kind of popular conceit, which is kind of racism at the time. Again, not a surprise. It was a black man who was a hero.
Yeah.
And in Romero, it wasn't a surprise that they inside a mall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He tried to see something,
Yeah.
right? So it's that, yeah.
Yeah, so like with Romero's trilogy, because even Day of the Dead too, there was thought
Right.
put into it, right? It wasn't just zombies killing people for the sake of it, right? Now for me, one thing Simon Pegg really does well is physical comedy, right? So I like how like there's a moment where you see him like stepping towards a doorway before he yawning, like he's just sort of waking up and just taking these sort of slow steps, but it's almost like he's moving zombie like as well. It's
Very
like
zombie.
yes.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
stuff like
No,
that, though, you wouldn't like it looks goofy, but it just adds to the humor of the show, right? There's also a moment where, like, right after he gets dumped by Liz, right, and then he gets cussed out by Pete, like, just level cussed out this man collect from him, right? Yeah, there's a moment because he was out in Winchester. We'll get to that in a bit. This regular pub that he and Ed goes to, say, come home drunk. Yes, there's a moment that he goes into the kitchen and he writes a note on a whiteboard, but the way how he does it is very zombie-like now, like the way how he shuffles towards the fridge door and then leans back on the chair. It's very zombie-like, right? So again, there's a lot of thought put into this movie as well, right?
One of the things I would say, sorry, in the beginning there, one of the things I absolutely love, I love when movies do this, and some of the early, like Airplane and stuff, would do it as well, where it almost feels like there's a movie within a movie. Everything, if you focus only on the background, right, before everything goes upend, and you focus just on the background of Shaun of the Dead, there's an entire life being lived out by the people there. There's the zombie invasion. It doesn't happen instantaneously like in Dawn of the Dead. I love that opening, that Snyder opening, by the way. I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
How it just kind of throws you into the chaos.
Yes.
But with what I like about the whole thing with Shaun is that it's happening. It is happening in the background. You're hearing bits and pieces. You're seeing things like the guy who's dead in the car and they're putting a neck brace on him and stuff like that going on in the background constantly. And it just shows you how Shaun has become so numb to life around him. It's only these little instances. Every now and again, you see like signs of recognition in him, and I love those little touches.
Yeah, me too, me too. So let's talk about the first true zombie encounter with Shaun and Ed, right? And this for me kind of plays like a tribute to Night of the Living Dead, right? By the way, I love the fact that Shaun's mom is called Barbara, which of course gives Eddie excuse to say, "We're coming to get you, Barbara." That's why, right? It's Edgar being nerdy with this stuff, right? I love that, right? But yeah, and I love how in this particular scenario, Shaun kind of like actually he doesn't even know what's going on, right? Say he and Ed have no clue that there's all this weird stuff going on, right? It's where you see this random zombie woman, Mary, that's her name, right? And you assume they're drunk now, And one thing I really love about Edgar's film, especially the way how he approaches genres, is that he always uses sort of like a British lens when it comes to things, right? It's like when they see the Mary in the backyard, it's like excuse me, hello, and then afterwards Ed just picks something and go oi, and just straight at she had now. That kind of thing. That it's like, oh well, if this is how a British slacker would react if they saw something like this, right? I love
it. No, it nails. Yeah, no, it nails like British pop culture, and he does British zeitgeist really well. Like just how people talk, how they behave. I'm particularly sensitive to this now because I just finished Fallout London.
Oh,
so
nice.
a bunch of like British and Commonwealth pop culture references throughout. Edgar Wright always had the finger on the pulse with respect to that.
Yeah. And the moment they sort of realize, okay, something is really wrong here, is when Mary falls onto the steel pipe and then she rises back up, right? But then you just see this fat male zombie like nearby, and that's when they realize, oh, something's up, right? And they set up, and one thing I really love about the show is how they set up certain gags. It's like earlier on, I think Pete told Shaun and Ed twice, close the front door. It's only after they see those two zombies like, okay, we should have closed the front door. I believe that's what they said, right?
Right.
But that was really cool. Also,
I like that we see that it's actually Shaun is the one who's been leaving the door open because he came in last.
That's true, yeah. And the way how they respond to things is logical, right? How they, in terms of just them grabbing whatever they could grab and throwing it at them, like that feels human to me. That feels like, oh, if you were put in that position, that's what you would do,
They're from a country where guns are not readily available. So how would you handle a situation like this? You know?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, no, he nails everyman humor very well. Like just one of the problems with movies, typical problem with movies is, oh, well, people don't react like that, or people won't, react like that in that sense. I know, with his films, people will realistically react like that, like in terms of like, if it's a zombie, and again, you always have these two chudhead type characters that are real kind of daily morons. I forget what Shaun's job was exactly. It was
he was working in this electronics store.
Yeah, electronics store.
Electronics store, right. Yeah, it's click level dummies, right? Like it's just dudes at the pub, everyday dudes. So he nails that very well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a funny sequence. So when we get to that with Zombieland, how I think they do a better job at nailing that aspect. But you'll get to that. Yeah.
We will. Right. So fun fact, right? So they're watching TV, right? And there's this guy who tells them, he talking about, when you see these zombies or whatnot, you remove the brain or you destroy the head, right? That actually is a real newscaster, retired now. His name is Jeremy Thompson. I like that once they hear that, the first thing they do again, is just grab whatever they could grab and throw it at them, right? So they take in jars, they take in take in toasters. But the moment that catch me though is that I think it's Ed. Yeah, Ed threw a LP, like a vinyl record, at one of them there, and they hit one of the male zombies in the eye. And it's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and like it's a funny bit. But sorry, I wouldn't like if I don't have a vinyl collection. That's one thing that I want to build in my lifetime, right? But I would never use that as projectiles on zombies. I wouldn't use that as projectiles
Right.
on anybody or anything. Like it's vinyls.
Well,
dog.
I always thought just the discuss aspect of it is what dotish.
Yeah.
Like, vinyls kind of semi-turgid, so they could break and maybe slice, but yeah, I don't know how that'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very
But it-
silly weapons of choice
Right.
in that moment. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is.
and the idea of the zombie apocalypse, and again, we could get into this aspect of the dehumanization aspect of how you think about it and you play with a joke. Is just the idea of funny weapons. Again,
Yes.
Zombieland, and well, I was a huge fan of the Left 4 Dead franchise at the time. Was oh yeah, you come up with some really silly weapons
Yes.
to kill them. You had to kill these creatures en masse, kind of thing. And they nailed that aspect of it. And yeah, this just coming up with some silly shit to kill them
Yeah.
really really works. I mean, the Romero material nailed this, and this does the parody stuff really well. Again, it's just simple comedy bit that really funny. Use a vinyl record to kill zombies. That's funny.
Yeah.
I forget which other game was real popular with this.
Dead Rising.
Dead Rising. Yes.
I want to say Dead Rising, right? That's the one in the mall. Yes, I think that.
Yes.
Right. I
Yeah.
never got
Dead
to that
Rising
part.
had a lot of weird, goofy weapons. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that aspect of it was like in the popular zeitgeist at the time. I think that was what, PlayStation 2 or 3 at the time. So yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
They make it work. Really funny bit.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to CC for this, right? But there's a moment where they pull out vinyls, right? And they reach the Prince now, and like Purple Rain, Sandy Times. Oh, the Batman soundtrack. They throw the Batman soundtrack. I mean, like why though? Like, but I know it's funny, but like why? Anyway, so we get what is, in my opinion, the greatest contribution to the zombie genre ever. Still one of the best weapons I ever see used to bash a zombie skull in, a cricket bat. That was the moment when I saw that for the first time. I was like, all right, this show is for me. This shows up for me.
Yeah, I think this shows up in Left 4 Dead 2.
Oh, you serious? Okay.
Yeah, it shows up in Left 4 Dead 2. I think there's a Shaun of the Dead joke in. Again, I was playing Fallout London a lot recently, and I think there's a Shaun of the Dead reference in this as well. So they bring up the cricket bat because in Fallout it has like a zombie type creature called the ghoul. Same thing. I think it is like 50% plus damage to ghouls or zombies, which is funny. That's a joke.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Yeah. But Left 4 Dead has it. The cricket bat. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
It's like a good grain of kills. You're done. That's a day.
Yeah.
You hit them for 6.
And it's something that would connect with audiences the way that wherever Britain went. So
yeah,
the whole
exactly. It's a
Caribbean.
nice thing. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good British and Commonwealth humor. You had to know
Yes.
to nail.
So we instantly would smile when we see a cricket bat, whereas
and it's
Americans were probably like, okay, what is that?
What is that? Yeah.
Right.
And it's a good way to sell the movie too, because I mean there are probably tons of posters, fan made even, that have Shaun with a cricket bat, right? But the first time I saw that, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, all right, this is something here. I never saw that before. And yes, still to this day, if I was in a zombie apocalypse, I mean, in addition to having a shotgun, our guns, sorry, yeah, I want me a cricket bat, dog. Like, and by the way,
as I say, you need a good grain of cults. You can't go with a good grain of cults to hit for 6 though.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I should mention too that moment where you see Shaun and Ed beating these zombies because Ed have a shovel. And they just do it like the coordination. I love that. That just how they do that was brilliant in my opinion, right? But anyway, so after the attack now, Shaun hatches his plan, and I love how one thing I love about Edgar Wright though is the editing though, how he just does all
these montage edits and rhythmic edits.
Yeah.
So well.
It always makes me think of that scene always brings to mind for me the Ash getting up in Evil Dead.
Yes.
And I don't know if it is a deliberate homage.
It is.
But because I know that's Wright's style, but it makes me think of that.
Yeah, no, it's a tribute to Sam Raimi. It's a clear tribute to Sam Raimi. I know that. Yeah.
No, yeah. Wright does nail. You see, rhythmic, especially rhythmic and metric editing. He's absolutely goated at that. Like just timing stuff with music, timing stuff with song, content, and the pointer song movement of the pointer song. Nail it. He's always nailed that.
Yeah. So I love how you just see like real Ocean's 11 style, right? You know, these three variables about the ideas that he's gonna pick up his mom, gonna kill his stepdad because he get bit, and by the way, I forget that Bill Nighy play him as like
Bill Nighy, right?
The man look like a zombie, like if you watch his face, you have a zombie look already.
Exactly. No, they get a lot of great British character actors to come through for this.
Yes.
If you're familiar with British television and sitcom stuff, it's like, all right, yeah, they know what they're doing. The man know what he's doing.
Yeah, all right. And after killing the stepdad, pick up Liz and then hold up in the Winchester, right? So, and that's another thing I love. Again, you know, Edgar and his British, you know, well, you know, as you say, British zeitgeist, right? Yeah, what do you really talk about it? Like, you know, from a British perspective, that would be a great place to hold out in, you know, like a pub, you know.
Right.
What do you really think about it?
Quick question. Is that part of the same universe or one of those like consistent like over thing the bar, that same bar? I can't remember if it's the same bar you call it.
No, I don't think that bar was in it wasn't the other
no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. I always thought it was one of those.
It is an homage to an actual place. I think it was called the Shelter.
Okay.
That Simon Pegg used to go to all the time. He actually named it to characters, the bar owners, after the actual owners of that place he used to go to.
Right. Okay. Now, one trope that Edgar plays with is the whole one of my friends got bit and me or Mina turned into a zombie, right? You know, that's what a lot of The Walking Dead is based on. It's like, oh, my friend get bit. So, you know, what do I do? Do I kill him? Do I, you know? Yeah, you see that a lot in that show, right? And I love how he does that, right? You know, and I love how he blends comedy and drama with it, right? With Shaun's mom, Barbara, and his stepdad, Philip, right? And Barbara now doesn't even know that Philip about to turn, because he just say, oh, you know, somebody bite him, but that was it, right? But then Philip don't even know neither, but it's only Shaun knows, right? But they set up this thing where, Shaun never really liked Philip as a stepdad. So it's like, all right, well, I will quicker kill you and save my mom now. But, you know, it's how everybody kind of talking about what's going on now. But, you know, the parents are unaware of what's really going on. That adds a lot of dramatic tension to the show, right? And then now the show does another trope now related to that, where the character who is supposedly infected actually gets bit again, and the protagonist sees it right in front of the eyes. So it's like, oh, you know, means everybody's suspicions raised, right? So that's where, right as they leave in the house, now Philip gets bitten by a zombie, right? He gets bitten in the neck, right? While he was leaving the house. And at the apartment now where Liz is at, right, we get two of my favorite shots in the movie, right? So it's basically two long takes of Shaun just running out, bashing zombie after zombie with his cricket bat, right? The second one in particular is the one I love, though. This is where you see Shaun, you see Liz, and you have the friends Diane, who is played by Lucy Davis, who, you know, is from the original Office and Chilling of Adventures of Sabrina, and David, who I will talk about a little bit later, right? Because I have a little nerdy theory about him, right? So this is moment where they're running towards the car now, right? Where Ed, Barbara, and Philip is at, right? And it has this like, is the music that always stood out to me. It has this sort of like electro hip hop kind of beat it, but it's really where Shaun is just like running and bashing a zombie with the cricket bat. It's just how they do it in that long take. I love that, right? Also, I know Ed is supposed to be the crass guy, right? So yes, admittedly, he does say some politically incorrect stuff, like where he says, all right, gay, which yes, and I shared this with you, Summer. Yeah, in 2020, Simon and Nick put out this video about COVID, right? And then they addressed that same quote about why he said that. But even back then I knew it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. It wasn't meant to be homophobic.
Also when he drops the N-word as
that's
well.
What I was about to say. I love that and I defend that. Right? It's so funny. Yeah. Like, why would you say that, dude?
It's just Ed being Ed. Ed has no filter. Ed is that guy that he messes up spectacularly. Yeah. But he doesn't seem to be fazed by anything anybody thinks about him. Because you realize Ed crashed the car on purpose so they could take the Jaguar.
Yes.
Things like that. You know, they are in a life or death situation and Ed crashes the car so he could have an excuse to drive the Jaguar.
Yeah. Look, even look, Ed, like in the first minute of the movie, Ed dropped the C word, like just out of the blue. Like, I just like, what?
Yes.
Why though? You know what I mean? But yeah, that when he dropped the N word, dude, that's hilarious to me because it's him saying that, right? I also love how the show kind of pretty much answers just how fast it takes for someone to become a zombie, right? Yeah, there's this really dramatic moment where Philip is delivering his final words to Shaun, right? And then he dies. And Shaun started crying, and then everybody
so nice,
why.
spectacular.
Yes. Just the performance is great.
It's such an amazing moment.
Yes, it is, right? And then, Shaun started crying, right? And then Barbara wondering, and he's like, Philip is dead. And she's like, no, he isn't. And then he turned around, I was like, oh, Philip is a zombie. I love that. That's just brilliant timing right there, right? Another great visual bit, though, is where Barbara is wondering if there's some way to see Philip, right? And Shaun is like yelling, talking about, no, there's nothing inside that car that even resembles Philip.
Yeah.
And then zombie Philip come and turn off the stereo. I love that.
Yeah.
It's just these bits.
Yeah, great jokes here.
Yeah. And there's this awkwardly funny moment though. It still catches me when it caught me, when I rewatch this, right? Yeah, where Shaun and his the group that he with, right? Yeah, he run into his friend Yvonne, right? Who also have a team of her own, and they do basically like a mirror match version of them, right? And Yvonne's boyfriend Declan just so happened to be played by Martin Freeman. I think this was like the second time I saw Martin Freeman in a film, because first time I saw him was a little film called Ali Janie House, still one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies. I know it's dumb, but I really enjoy it. But yeah, this was like the second time I saw Martin.
He was in The Office then.
Oh, he was in the
right. He was Jim in The Office, I think.
Yeah, he was the original Jim, right?
Oh yes, he was. Yes,
was
yes.
He?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he was. The original Jim. I think the Jim and Pam are both there.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Or Martin and Lucy. Oh, okay. Well, forgive me. Again, I only saw one season of that old Office, right? And yeah, the shot of them walking past each other is awkward and silly, but it's a visual gag and it works, right? It works. It's kind of weird, kind of awkward, but it works, right?
Yeah.
And then, but for me, a moment I really enjoy though is where our heroes have to pretend to be zombies just to get across the street and into the Winchester, right? I like that is Diane is the one who do it, because there's a moment earlier on when in Liz's apartment where Liz called Diane a failed actress there, but basically she's the one who have to tell them to get into these zombie roles, right? There's a line that she drops that I love where she says, "Look at the face. It's vacant with a hint of sadness, like a drunk who's lost a bet." I love that. Just trying to make sense of this whole weird zombie stuff, right? And then of course when they moving about, it's hilarious. I like that Shaun is doing the whole sleepwalking bit, the whole kind of thing. I love it. This is brilliant, right? The third act in the Winchester is great though, right? It's just so much memorable moments here, right? So I love, again, just going back to grabbing what you could grab and use it to kill zombies. Yeah, where they grab these pool cues and, the jukebox goes off and you hear Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. And to me, that still remains one of the best uses of that song in film ever. Yes, I know it played the end of Bohemian Rhapsody. I know you love that movie, Summer. But sorry, the use of this song in this movie is great. I love it.
No. Listen, I'm in full agreement with you, because Shaun is basically dancing the entire time. You can see it in his body.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah, like
Edgar Wright and
moment, but it works. It just works,
No, Edgar Wright, and he utilization the music and the editing. He's really good at that. Like, it's one of the rare examples of nailing that. Because at first, on the surface, it's just you dismiss it as kind of student filmy, right? But no, this guy is such a professional. He just combines the material so well as make it work. Like, he's really good at his editing.
Yes. So I have a quick little theory about David, right? And something like I just noticed over time when I was watching the show, right? So there's a moment where Shaun and them realize, because this is a little plot point that they bring up, right? That the rifle at the Winchester is fake, right? But then they realize it's actually real. So Shaun asks everyone if they ever had experience with a gun, right? And then David says he's a pacifist, right? But there's a moment during the climax where David ends up having a rifle, right? And that shot in particular where he's holding the gun, for me, reminds me of still to this day one of my favorite psychological thrillers ever. That would be Straw Dogs, the original one, right? Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
the star of that show is Dustin Hoffman, and he played David, and he was also a
Right,
pacifist, and he wore glasses. And then, yeah, eventually when the antagonists break into his home, that's when he get aggressive, like he get really violent
Right.
at it, right? And yeah, the climax for that, boy, whew, that movie still gets under my skin, and I love it for that, right? Also, a little trivia here. I could be wrong about this, right? But yeah, you notice that suddenly you see Shaun rocking this red bandana around his head when he
Right.
starts loading the gun.
Ramble.
I was more
Right.
thinking of the Deer Hunter, Christopher Walken's character.
Right.
There's a moment, yeah, where
Right.
Oh,
where they was doing the whole
Yeah.
Russian roulette thing, and yeah, he was rocking
Yeah,
a red
every time
bandana.
Yeah.
every time you do the red bandana wrap around the head is either Rambo, Deer Hunter, or that character from Predator. I forget his name.
Oh gosh,
Uh,
what is-
Yeah. Billy. Billy.
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to what I said earlier about how the show does not shy away from the seriousness, right? Yes, in retrospect, you see it coming, right? But I like that certain people were unaware, but you know that it happened. Yeah, Sean mom get bit. And
Right.
it's when she tells Liz about it, though. She's the one who showed Liz, right? And because she trusts Liz to take care of Sean when she turns, like that really is effective. And just the acting involved too, right? Not treating it as a joke. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I know I'm going to go, right? And
Yeah.
but it's when Sean finds out and how he feels, right? But it's when and it's how like Barbara responds, like, I didn't want to tell you, I didn't want you to get upset. Boy, I feel that though. I feel that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, when Barbara dies now, well, David, he's the one who's handed the gun by Diane, right? He aims it at Barbara. And that's where the whole aggressive stuff that I mentioned earlier with David comes, like, oh, I'm a pacifist, but you understand his rational his thinking at this point. It's like, we see with Philip already. She's going to turn. We are the killer. And then you can't blame Sean for reacting the way he does, like, that's my mom, and just how that scene plays out though is great, right? But then
One thing he nails. I don't know if this is just the general British humor stuff, and I don't know if what the term for it is, but to me this character is the progenitor for doing the whole, I forget what it's called, but it have a term, as a kind of general vague term called anti-dramedy. This is not like no official term or anything like that.
Right.
But the idea of putting a goofy, silly character that you should be laughing at in a really serious, like dramatic situation, and flipping the comedy. Because usually when you think of a dramedy, it's like, it's a kind of a character you should take serious, but you put it in a comedy role, something like that, or a somewhat less serious scenario. But this show, and I have a lot of modern shows, like say, to me, this is the first character to do this really well, which is, a goofy role, but you had to take it dead serious here, at least in a couple moments. Something like what Barry is, or like the bear, you're not supposed to take these characters kind of seriously, but then you put them in a real serious dark situation. This, I find, to me, I put this character as one of the like progenitors for this. Like back then, The Office to a certain extent, but I find this nailed that. Yeah.
I do feel like because what I feel like they're going for as well is Sean being forced to grow up in the most ridiculous level that exists, which is his parents are stripped away from him. We'll get to what happens to Ed. Everything is stripped away from Sean, forcing Sean to come out of his comfort zone and not stop relying on other people or using other people as a crutch. You have that aspect of it, but then you also have, and all zombie movies and television shows kind of like to explore who people really are. So you have David saying he's a pacifist, but we know David never liked Sean because he's jealous of the relationship. David pulls the trigger. I mean, that's insane. That is so dark for what this movie is.
Right.
Yeah.
That David pulled that trigger. And, so yeah, all of that going on is just, I feel it's just everybody. We also see, is it Liz, David's girlfriend? Diane.
Diane.
What's her name again?
Diane.
Diane. Diane seems to be, for the first time, she's actually acknowledging, she knows how David feels about Liz, and she's, she deals with it. So everybody, with the exception of Ed, Ed remains Ed from beginning to end, but everybody else, try basically showing a side of themselves they probably would not have shown if all of that didn't happen. And I do love how he I know it's something you see in a lot of zombie movies and zombie television shows and stuff like that, but I think they did do a really good balance of it here for everybody. Because even David, I mean, like you said, Matthew, David had a point. But at the same time, you have that selfishness of, well, no, this is my mom. It's hard to disconnect from people like that just because they're quote unquote dead.
Right.
That's true.
But again, we could get again. We'll get into the ending of the movie, but like I find that's where the movie kind of slightly undermined for me with respect to that. But you could get into that.
Right.
Okay.
And in case I don't mention it, well, I guess you'll bring it up, right? For me, what makes the scene so tragic though is that he was like Shaun was jokingly in quotes going to kill his stepdad, but eventually he's the one who has a gun and he kills his mom. Like that is really tragic, right? In my opinion, right? But for me, if Barbara's death is the most tragic, David's death is the most brutal, boy. In an homage now to the original Dawn of the Dead, David has his insides ripped out by a group of zombies, and I'll never forget seeing that for the first time. Like,
I think
like,
that's
this is
an
the
homage
level we going? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Day of the Dead. Which one is the one with them in the bunker and it's the military versus the scientists?
That's Day of the Dead. I know Day is more violent than Dawn, but you remember
right.
how over the
Day
top
has a scene where the character, Day has a scene exactly like that, where the main antagonist is ripped apart like that, exactly like that.
Okay.
I think it's that one is D. Yeah.
Okay, I saw it was Dawn though, because I know there was a guy who had his intestines ripped or whatever it is, right? But point is, stomach is ripped open, arms, legs, and head pulled off. Just like, jeez, boy, like it is legit the goriest death in the entire movie, right? And I can't say that David deserved that, boy, but I was like, wow, that was incredibly brutal, right? But anyway, shit hits the fan at this point now.
And it's a callback as well to something that in the apartment when they were discussing whether they should leave or not. And I think it was Diane who told him, what, do you want to stay here and get ripped apart?
Yes.
Edgar does that a lot. Every, this cyclical thing where something in the beginning will get called back again in the end, but in a different way.
Yeah, indeed. Right,
it's really funny foreshadowing. They do a joke, but
yeah, and they follow that.
Yeah.
So Diane's fate is left unknown. Like it's clear that she get killed because she gets attacked by the zombies, but oddly enough, you don't see what happens to her though. But I guess it's clear that she died, right? Ed gets bit. I thought that was pretty funny though by Pete because they end up leaving. Well, they end up leaving their apartment. They took Pete's car. And Pete had already turned into a zombie, but I just find it so funny that he catch up to them in the Winchester. So it's again bit by Pete, right? And I could be wrong, right? But the whole Duex Machina moment where you see this military team step in and send a bus shot to these zombies, I feel like that's supposed to be a Day of the Dead reference. Like I feel that's the case,
Okay.
Yeah, and even like the final moments in the movie where you see the aftermath of the apocalypse, right? Yeah, it feels very Day of the Deadish. Like it's like, you know what? The night and the dawn has already come, so like now we have to live with this whole zombie thing now. So yeah, this is how things are gonna be, right? And they actually call the day itself Z-Day, right? Where everything just sort of went to hell, right? I like that. It's sort of funny, right? But I like that they kind of involve in stuff now. So like they're working in supermarkets now, as cheap labor, clearly, or they're starring in like sports competition shows. Like you see some sort of like one of those like game shows like Ninja Warriors. See them doing something like that. There's a nice moment though where you just basically see it through this montage, like this TV montage, right? Where Jeremy Thompson himself, right, the newscaster, was talking about his coverage of what happened, right, on Z-Day. He talked about how he never thought in his career he'd ever say remove the head or destroy the brain. I love that, right? Also, I didn't know this till like a few days ago. There's a moment where you see a rock group, talking about how they create this charity group called Zombied. That's Coldplay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Also, another fun fact, right? So this is basically Edgar Wright doing a nice little shout out to Danny Boyle. They reveal that the virus was spread by rage-infested monkeys, which of course is a reference to 20 Days Later. I was like, all right, I like that. That's cool. Kind of say, hey, you do a zombie movie, I do a zombie movie. Cool. great, right? For me, the ending is really satisfying though for a zombie movie, right? Shaun and Liz are back together, and Ed, who is a zombie, and technically he's the bub zombie now. If you remember Day of the Dead, he's bub now. Yeah, he lives in the shed, and I like that. They still like Ed and Shaun still playing video games together. That's a really nice way to end that to end that scene though. And I would say I would argue,
and one could argue as well that Ed, nothing changed for Ed.
no.
I see.
Ed is the one character.
You could say that doesn't change for we call it Shaun as well. Like they get to normalize this terrible scenario though.
Yes.
And life goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of weird kind of take on it.
That's. I feel too that based on what we see with having lived through our own version of that with COVID, in that the sense that we as human beings can normalize and adapt to a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And that's of course been a very exaggerated version of it, but it may not be as far from the truth or as ridiculous as we think,
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, there's an interesting commentary about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably like the most upbeat conclusion to any zombie movie. Like even I would put this up there as even like Zombieland, have a nice ending, have a upbeat ending. But this one was like pure, yeah, life goes on though, despite all the hell that we went through. Oh yes, Warm Bodies,
another one.
Which I have not seen in a long while though, but yeah, I remember seeing that, right? Before we get to like rating, right? Ricardo, you say you had something to say about the ending of the movie. I remember you saying.
Oh no, yeah. Well, it's this. It's just the whole. Again, his characters kind of do grow now. If you think about it, like they give a sense of growth, and then everything is gonna come back to normal. It's like, well, you changed. Okay. Did you change? It's debatable if this character changed at all. Right? And it's kind of it's kind of strange. Right? With Hot Fuzz, there's be a kind of flip, interesting scenario. But I thought with World's End, that was probably the most cynical take on that, because he was just like, oh well, I kind of want to maintain and flourish in this terrible scenario kind of thing.
Right.
Which I that's why the ending kind of bother me in that sense. But whatever, it's fine.
Right.
But yeah, that's all I just think about it. Like these characters, they give the semblance of growth, but like when I think about it, like do they grow? Not sure. Like it's still okay. I read it's not clear that they do grow. Like the movie gives you a lot of great emotional beats to tell you that they should be growing, but by the end itself, like when they investigate the scenario, it's like they're still living their life normal, they still playing video games.
That's true.
Is it that, or is it just a return to the what it's called the story cycle kind of stuff, and they just come back home? But because it's a comedy, it's to play with that. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's because it's a comedy, it's fine.
The only visual clue we seem to get of any change is the house is very clean and very orderly.
Yes.
Right.
Once Liz is there. But other than that, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I never looked at it that way before, but I do see it. If anything, it's almost like, without knowing exactly what happened with Shaun, it seemed like Liz decided that, oh, okay, you know what, this is fine.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
they kind of settled down there.
I really don't think you had to think, you overthink it. It's just like, you know what, let's just end it like this, because of all the hell that these characters went through. I think that's how it had to be, right? Yeah, so for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a light 4.5 out of 5, right? To me, this still is my favorite of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy. Even though I really, really, really do enjoy Hot Fuzz, a lot of moments I really enjoy from it. Shaun, they just
I don't know. I just find Nap was the funniest thing ever.
Oh yeah, Nap.
That just had me.
All right. So about that, since you bring it up, I think like everybody was thinking NARP, because you hear the character saying yap, right? So
yap all the time,
so it's like, okay, is he gonna say nap? But when he actually say nap, it's like, yes, he say it. I think that's a joke.
Yeah.
But for me though, I remember a lot from showing that. I remember just bits and humor and lines. I remember a lot of lines from this, right? So I think that's why this one sticks out a little bit more than Hot Fuzz, right? It put me on to the film nerdiness of Edgar Wright. I just like the way how he approaches his films. And I'm glad that his career blew up, for what it was, even though it's a shame that he did not get his chance with that first Ant-Man movie, man. I mean, oh gosh. But anyway, right? That's another story for another day, right? But yeah, this put me on to Edgar Wright, this put me on to Simon Pegg, this put me on to Nick Frost. I haven't seen Nick Frost in films in a while though. Like I really should catch up and see what he up to. But Simon Pegg, we last see him in The Boys, right? So he's doing things, right?
Right, because I think in the comic boys, it was supposed to be him, but kind of each out of the role.
Okay. Yeah.
I do one thing that people don't talk about, how the comic boys is effectively a British show. It's British story.
Right.
Most of the characters are British, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. But it just kind of framed as a very American conceit.
Right.
Now, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Simon Pegg was supposed to be him, but yeah, he the boys now.
Okay, yeah.
Which was pretty cool what they did last season. I liked what they did with that.
Me too.
Yeah, I did too.
This was superbly written. The acting works, the comedic points, the comedic bits are on point and whatnot. And just the execution of it all works. So even in the goofy, silly moments, right? I like that. Despite the really heavy drama, yeah, it's just a laugh out, fun right from start to end, right? Not so much making fun of a zombie apocalypse, but just sort of kind of playing on the absurdity of it all. I think that's what Edgar really nails with this movie, right? Now, last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to final thoughts, right? In retrospect, I know some people might look at it and be like, this wasn't really a romantic comedy, it wasn't it wasn't really that, But again, I think that it just rolls off the tongue pretty nicely. Rom-com. It has the sort of foundation for romantic comedy, relationship on the rocks. Does Shaun find somebody else, or does he do what he can to save the relationship? So it's there, but I like that it's not really about the romantic stuff, it's really about the comedy, and it's really about him trying to deal with this whole madness with the zombie stuff. So it's there, but it's like the romantic stuff is there, but not as much as you would expect, right? So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody were to watch this over and be like, this is not really a romantic comedy, but that's not the point of the show, right? But again, it just sort of sounds good when you see it, rom-com, right? It could have just been a zom-com, but we've had those in the past, but you never had a rom-com. But anyway, yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I never really thought of it as a romantic comedy either. I looked at it as more like a buddy flick. Because it to me, it's more about Shaun and Ed than anything else, you know?
Yeah. But still, to me, this remains one of my favorite horror comedies. And just going back to what I said, this last point, I love that even though it does rely a lot on comedy, it does not hold back on the horror. It still gives you those gut punches dramatically. And yeah, it gives you the blood and guts that you would expect from a R-rated zombie film anyway, right? So yeah, 20 years old, man, so can't wait to see if it holds up 10, 20 years from now, man. We'll see. So yeah, Ricardo, your final thoughts on rating?
Comedy classic. Again, don't love it as much as Hot Fuzz, but it's still like just a true classic in the eyes of people. A lot of the humor really leans into the whole zeitgeist, normal guy in goofy situation stuff, and the Britishisms and all of those like jokes that just really work at the time in the zeitgeist, and it still holds up in terms of those jokes, and it's just really small, great comedy bits, and it just comes together so well as an homage and as a homage and parody, slash parody. And yeah, it's just a true, in my humble opinion, true comedy classic.
All right, and Summer, your final thoughts on rating?
Yeah, it is a favorite of mine. More so for anything, like as a fan of horror, it's always cool to see when somebody who truly loves horror does horror. And you could tell Edgar Wright really loves the genre as much as fans do, with all the callbacks. And every time I see it, I see something else. Like I rewatched it earlier this morning, and I picked up on something else in it. The restaurant that he was supposed to take her to for sushi was called Full Cheese, and I realized, okay, that's a little nod to the Giallo movies of Fulci, and you see things like that. Every time I see it, I see something new, and I catch something new. But the sensibilities of it, I always think British comedy is hard to beat. I really find that they do comedy. They do, the way their dialogue is very snappy and witty. It's just something about it to me that is a bit funnier than American comedies in general, which tend to be a bit, heavy on the tropes and one notes. This delivered, and then it's one of those movies that it definitely has these darker elements if you want to take it that seriously, especially coming down to the end. So it has a little bit of everything, I feel. It definitely added life to a genre that, I mean, zombies always, you always they feel very played out. They're not scary. So when somebody takes them and tries to do something different and it works, I always appreciate that. So for me, this is like a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, and like I said, it's hard for me to say whether or not I think it's better than Hot Fuzz, but the two pretty much I have them tied.
Right.